So today we're chatting about Ted Lasso and the morning show on Apple TV Plus. I think we've been actually doing this last few months. We've been doing a lot of TV, and obviously because of pandemic and stuff, TV is basically kind of taking over a lot of entertainment. So it's kind of nice to head over in that direction and explore some TV shows. And I had seen Morning Show when it first came out. I was watching it week to week as it came out, but I only just watched Ted Lasso. I sort of wrote it off. I was like, not interested. And then Will was like, let's do the episode about it. And I watched it in 3 days, and I loved it. I love Ted Lasso.
I knew you would.
I'm so excited for season 2.
There's a lot of things that came up in that show that are things that you've brought up on this show before, like about how men are portrayed and just how people are portrayed. We're gonna get into it. So
yeah. Do you want to talk about one and the other, or do you want to kind of talk at the same time with both of them? Because
oh, my cat's awake.
Because both of the shows actually, even though they're very different shows with different story and everything, they do have a lot in common in some of the themes that they explore, which is really interesting. And I didn't realize it was that strong of a it's almost what's the word I'm looking for? Very complementary to each other. In the themes that they explore.
So I guess I'll start out by saying this, because we can go in any direction. We can just talk about whatever. But I think the reason that I wanted to talk about them together for an episode is because they both tackle things that are current right now. Because the industry is in this changing landscape about how women are treated and about how men treat women or about how men carry themselves in general. And I think that both shows deal with all of that kind of content, but in two very different ways. So I think that most storytelling could be divided into these two different aspects, where your storytelling is either showing the real world and how the real world is and how people actually are in the real world, or you're creating a world that you want to see, and showing how things could be and what could happen and that kind of thing.
Just kind of what Schitt's Creek did.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's like you can tackle the same things, but the way people react to them are kind of dictated by what kind of story you're telling in that respect. And I feel like the morning show is showing the real world, and how things actually are within, that industry, and how things are changing thanks to the Me Too movement, and how we're trying to give women more of a voice and listen to victims of all that kind of perpetration. And I think Morning Show does a really good job of showing how that landscape is changing for the better, hopefully for the better, where Ted Lasso is kind of talking about similar themes, but it's showing it from a perspective of how things could be, like the positivity that you could actually just have if you wake up and kind of try to be positive, and try to be helpful. It's almost like the morning show is showing a woman's point of view and how traumatic some of this industry stuff can be, and Ted Lasso is showing kind of a man's point of view, but that point of view is of a man who is supportive and is not trying to hold people down. So that's why I mean it's like the real world versus the world we want to see. And that's why I think that these two shows, both from Apple TV, Apple Plus, kind of work well hand in hand together. I feel like it's a conversation to just have them together.
I would say that if you have not, I know many people don't have Apple TV Plus, and I know, oh no, that's not it. That's not what I wanted to do.
Just the poster. dramatic
I
posting.
think Apple TV Plus, the app now, you can actually get it in different systems and different. You don't actually have to own a physical Apple TV. It's definitely worth. I think they have a free trial worth trying out the free trial to watch at least these two shows. They have a bunch of other cool stuff, but these two shows definitely stands out. Um,
And they're short seasons too. They're not like they're doable.
yeah,
You can get
absolutely.
through them.
Yeah, when I saw there was 10 episodes for Ted Lasso, I was like, man, that's like 10 hours that I have to try to get through, and they were half-hour episodes, so it was actually
Yeah.
pretty convenient, pretty easy to watch.
And turns out it's actually really funny too.
Yeah, it's actually really funny. And actually, Morning Show is kind of funny at times too, as well, because there's a little bit of humor in it as well.
Morning Show was a fucking roller coaster because it
Uh-huh.
takes you all over the emotional gamut. And I was not expecting it. So, yeah, these are both shows I had kind of written off Apple TV.
Mm-hmm.
These are both shows that I saw being marketed, and I was like, kind of like how you were about Ted Lasso. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, not really grabbing me. And it wasn't until you recommended Morning Show. You watched
Mm-hmm.
Morning Show first. You recommended it on this show, and I was like, okay, if Art's recommending it, I guess I'll give it a shot. Um, and then some friends of ours also recommended it outside of the show, and so I was like, okay, people are liking the show. Let me watch it. And I got hooked instantly. Like by the end of the first episode, the cliffhanger of the first episode was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to keep watching. And it grows from there. Um, Ted Lasso was kind of the same way. I was like, whatever. But then it started winning awards. Like it won, um, I think it won Best Show Golden Globe. Did it?
I don't know. Don't
No,
remember.
Schitt's Creek won that. It won something. It
Something,
was
yeah.
winning for a bunch of something. And so I started to notice it. And I just put on the episode and was like, oh, that was good. And then I was like, I had finished the whole thing so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and apparently there's this thing called the Ted Lasso effect. Have you heard of this?
Mm-mm.
Where people have written off Apple TV,
Mm-hmm.
thinking that like they just have stupid stuff. And because Ted Lasso has been winning so many awards, people check out Ted Lasso, like it, and then start watching everything else that Apple TV has.
Mm.
And it's happened so much, like people have been talking about it so much online that it's now called the Ted Lasso effect, where
Oh.
Ted Lasso lassos you in, and then you start watching all of Apple TV and love all of it. And I have to say, everything I've watched on Apple TV, I have liked. So
And for those of you who haven't watched it, let's talk about a little bit about what the shows are. So, Morning Show, it is about a morning show, something like Good Morning America or something like that, a morning newsy show, in which the two anchors it's Jennifer Aniston and Steve Carell. You find out that Steve Carell has been accused of some kind of sexual misconduct. And it's basically what these anchors in this new station, primarily an anchors, and a brand new anchor, that's a woman, Reese Witherspoon, who gets basically brought in to replace him, and kind of the turmoil that they go through having to deal with all that, because it ends up being this gigantic deal that not only affected Steve Carell's character, but it affected everybody else in who worked there, and it
the
put a lot
entire
of people,
newsroom, yeah.
entire newsroom, the company, and it put a lot of people's jobs at stake. And it was it's a very complicated thing that would actually feels like it would happen in real life.
Yeah. I think
And
that's what is, just before you go on to Ted Lasso, I think that's what is so interesting about morning shows, that it's not just one perspective, it's everyone's perspective. So you get to know um, Steve Carell and the stuff that he's going through. You get to know other characters that Steve Carell's friends with, who have done even worse stuff than him.
mhm,
But then you get to know Jennifer Aniston's character and how she feels conflicted about this being her friend and someone that she's been working with for a long time, but also understanding how it feels to be a woman in these kinds of situations.
mhm,
And then you get Reese Witherspoon, who's new to the whole thing, and she's this kind of journalist who is ready to burn it all down,
mhm,
my kind of journalist. Um, and and so these are all like varying perspectives, and they all conflict. And that's just some of the main characters, but we also get minor characters in the show and they aren't. None of the characters in Morning Show are props.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is there and has um, a character motive that is kind of looked into to some extent. It's not just everyone's story interacts,
And
intersects, and it's interesting that way.
and you could see how the actions of one person end up clearly affecting everybody in so many different ways. One of
Yeah,
the examples that stood out a lot for me, because it was one of the shittiest examples, is so basically Steve Carell was having inappropriate relationships with people in where he worked. But there is another couple it's the weatherman and one of the producers who are having a romantic relationship. They're not doing anything wrong. They're just keeping it secret because they know that it's a work relationship and it's maybe not so
right.
great. But after this comes out, it becomes incredibly difficult for them because he kind of maybe like a superior to her a little bit, and
Yeah,
because there becomes this whole weirdness about them thinking that they might get in trouble for having a completely normal romantic relationship and how that affects other people. And it's just all throughout. All these people are affected deeply by this one person's actions, which is
yeah,
something we don't get to see a lot of. You realize that sometimes when you do something terrible, it affects a lot of people.
yeah. So even though that couple, and I love their side plot
Mm-hmm.
because it's a completely consensual relationship. Like they
Mm-hmm.
both are into it and supportive of each other. There's no abuse of power or anything like that. But because of the climate of what's happening in the industry, um, they're they're just uncomfortable with it,
Mm-hmm.
which is understandable. And the way that the newsroom and HR has to handle things, um, because it's protocol as opposed to getting to know people and what's actually working for people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's yeah, it's really complex. It goes into all of those little details that I really wasn't expecting it to go into.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I thought that was really well done.
I think one of my the favorite things about Morning Show is how they did a really good job of constantly reminding you of the different type of men that are throughout, and how
Yeah.
very specifically they kept reminding you how wrong Steve Carell's character was for doing what he did, and it does a good example of showing you that other people can be shitty in other ways, but not necessarily be this kind of shitty. Or sometimes the people who you think would never do terrible things can be, and the people who are you maybe would expect that out of them don't. And for example, one of the and so they're constantly contrasting people. Like I said, with the people having a relationship. But the other character that I really like that they used him for is Billy Crudup's character, um,
Oh
who is
yeah, yeah,
he's an executive who basically comes around to try to refix the show, retool the show, and try to make changes to the show to help it. And he comes from like a different. He gets put in from a different division of the company, and so he's not terribly welcome. And he's kind of a jerk. He's kind of this like pompous character. I love him. I think he's such a good character, and he's so funny. But he's kind of somebody who manipulates people and does whatever he can to get basically get the work done. But there was one example where like it was really cool to see that he ends up in a situation with one of the characters, one of the female characters, and where you think that this is an opportunity for him to do something similar to take advantage of her, and he ends up being the nice guy. She gets super drunk, and they're hanging out together, and they're like kind of getting a little flirty, and they're just talking a lot, and he does like the completely proper thing of like I think he takes her. They end up in his apartment, but like he just lays her in bed, and he goes out and hangs out, and then I think ends up waiting for her to kind of like get a little sobered up and wake up, and it was kind of cool to see that the contrast that they were trying to show you, that not everybody, basically what you see is not always what you're gonna get with people, because Steve
yeah,
Carell's character was loved and people wouldn't have never
yeah.
thought that of him.
Exactly. Yeah. I yeah. I don't think he even stayed in bed with her. He just laid her in bed and went to like
He went to like
sit
the
on the
living
couch in
room.
the
I
other
think
room or
when she
something.
woke up,
Yeah,
he was sitting on the couch like drinking coffee or something,
yeah.
which is it was interesting to see.
And he's also he was also a kind of burn it all down character, which
Mm-hmm.
I'd love characters like that. Like let's
Yeah.
just fuck the system. um, but yeah, and what's the motivation for everyone? Because also Jennifer Aniston, who um, didn't necessarily actively do anything awful, also has to confront herself about whether she was allowing it to happen,
Mm-hmm.
knowing that her co-host had relationships with different women and she never said anything, if she was complacent with it, and so it also, there are so many different perspectives and different thoughts about how these kind of situations go, and it kind of just explored all of them
Mm-hmm.
pretty thoroughly.
Mm-hmm.
um Worried, like every episode I was worried that something awful was going to happen um with these characters. Like it just felt like something else was looming, and then it does get worse by the end of the show.
Yep.
It most definitely gets worse. There's also the perspective of, because all of the characters we've talked about so far are white, and so there's also the perspective of, where do black women fall in this? Because there are two black women on this show
Mm-hmm.
who almost feel like they're in the background for a lot of it, but you learn that they are pretty integral to this story. And them being in the background is almost symbolic. I won't even say almost, it is symbolic of how um, certain people go through certain things and don't get listened to,
Mm-hmm.
um, because of who they are and where they stand. And maybe if people would listen to them earlier on when they're trying to speak and seek help, um, it doesn't have to get as bad as it gets. So, yeah, I was really blown. I wasn't expecting it to be anything like this.
Yeah, and it's kind of cool with that character because you get to see her having to traverse this whole thing, both as a woman and as a black woman. So she has to kind of, the women are having a hard enough time, but as a black woman, she even has another obstacle on top of that to have to deal with, and
Right.
it's interesting to see that perspective. Um,
And go ahead.
I'm gonna
Me?
change stuff. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, that's one thing, but then a lot of the other co-hosts, because Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon are the main anchor women, but a lot of the other co-hosts on the show are also minorities,
Mm-hmm.
and we see that they get shafted a bit just to prop up um, the two women that the station believes are going to be the face of America.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes into all of those little details, and yeah, I'm not. I also think that the show was very well cast, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a huge Jennifer Aniston fan, and I think that's why I was initially put off from this show, to be
Same.
honest.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but she is so great in the role that's given
Mm-hmm.
on this show. She's perfectly cast in that role. Reese Witherspoon is perfectly cast as her fiery younger anchorwoman character. Billy Crudup is perfectly cast. Steve Carell is perfectly cast. Like everyone. Gugu, who is one of the black actresses in it, I'm a huge fan of hers already. So when I saw she was in
Me
it, I
too.
was like, okay, she's probably going to be a big part of the show. And when she was silent for like most of the first half of the season, I was like, why do they even hire her? What is she going to do? But then, she turns out to be a big part of the show.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone was like really perfectly cast, and I was surprised that Jennifer Aniston won me over. It's like, okay, Jennifer, you
Yeah,
got me.
she worked
You
the
were
show
you were
real
good in
well.
this.
So let's contrast that a little bit with Ted Lasso and how that portrays some of the similar elements.
Yeah.
It definitely tackles the behavior of men
Yeah.
with women, and but it does try to kind of give you a positive outlook that that it is possible to not be a jerk, to be a completely
Yeah.
nice human being who is
Yeah.
respectful, kind, uh, can joke around, can hug a woman without being a weirdo, can have completely normal relationships, friendships, and everything. And I think they do a good job because even so, Ted Lasso is this character who's extremely positive. He is like on just tipping over slightly, almost towards the toxic positivity area, but just keeping it over here. And because even the people who are the normal people, they end up also being not necessarily terrible people. They're all nice people who treat each other well. In general, there are some issues, but in general, they're
Yeah.
people who don't seem like they would cross that line. Even the people who are the jerks in the show are not as bad people as the morning show real people are.
Right.
Nowhere near. Um,
And that's why I say Ted Lasso is definitely like an optimistic look at how the world could
could be.
be,
Yeah.
where the morning show feels like the real world.
Oh, but just sad. Um, yeah, because in watching Ted Lasso. So the character of Jamie, who is one of the football players, he's like the star of the football team. He's a guy who's pretty selfish and basically thinks that the team is there to serve him. I was like, he's so polite, even when he's being a complete dick. Maybe because he's British and he has an accent, but he always sounds so polite. He says thank you, and he's like, and he'll say the just horrible things to you, but you're like, I'm not that angry at you because you were really polite about it. It was really weird to see.
So I guess yeah, let's give some background on this show. So Jason Sudeikis plays Ted Lasso, who is an American football coach who has been hired by a British soccer team
Yeah,
to come be their coach.
a Premier
Um,
League soccer team, which is like high
high end,
high
high up.
level, and he came from like high school and some college, I think,
Yeah.
football.
And he has absolutely no knowledge of soccer, like football. I mean, because they call that football there, and he doesn't. Football is a completely different thing to him.
Hmm.
He knows nothing about soccer. So he comes in. The reason he's even hired, more backstory, is because this team that he's hired for has just lost their owner. Um, it's been there's the owner has just had a divorce, and the owner's wife becomes the new owner of the team. And because this team was that owner, her ex-husband's beloved team, she actually wants to destroy the team. So she's hired this American uh, coach who she thinks is inept and will come over and just run this team into the ground. So the show is not without its bad intentions. You know,
Yeah,
there are characters who definitely want to cause trouble. Um, but all of these characters, Ted Lasso's positivity is kind of infectious.
hmm,
And so the more that he interacts with them, the more that he is nice to them and is forgiving to them, because he knows that he's being played for a fool, but
hmm,
he's still like trying to do the best that he can do. Um, the more that they see, like, maybe I made some bad choices, then maybe we should be more positive and do some better things. So even the characters who are kind of like assholes at the beginning of the show, by the end of the season, have made huge
yeah,
character strides and huge character arcs. And the show is just overall, like, his positivity just fills the entire cast,
yeah,
and the entire locker room. Like, the the team doesn't know how they want to be because they have a new owner, and they're also going to this championship that they've never been able to win before, so they're already like feeling kind of low. But Ted Lasso is able to just pick everyone up from, and this is all while also going through his own personal shit.
hmm,
Ted Lasso goes through a major divorce of his own. He's in this new country that's far away from his child, um, that he misses. And so there's a lot of stuff that Ted Lasso has to deal with himself that are not positive. Um, but he still finds a way to not take that out on everyone else the way other people usually would take that out on everyone else and become
yeah.
a jerk. Um, I love it. It was
Yeah.
so hopeful.
Mm-hmm. And that's why I say that these two shows are very complementary to each other, because you get to see how in one show your negative actions affect a ton of people, and in this one you get to watch how your positive actions can affect as many people in the exact same amount of with force, the same amount of force, but in a positive way.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to see that kind of next to each other.
Good job, Apple TV.
Yeah. Um, any standout stuff in Ted Lasso that stood out for you a whole bunch?
One thing that I really loved about Ted Lasso, and it wasn't just the Ted Lasso character, but a lot of the characters did this. There were a lot of moments where a character had a choice of doing something awful or something good, and it wasn't that they immediately went to making the right choice,
Mm-hmm.
but it was the fact that they stopped and questioned, even if it was like questioning someone else. They stopped and went up. Like there was the one grumpy player who is having okay, so there's two like big ego players on the team.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is dating one of the girls that works for the team, but he ends up getting kicked off the team and leaving. And so the other big ego guy starts dating the girl, all consensual. The girl is like for
Yeah.
it, she's like instigating it, she loves it. And I also love that this show had that female character who was kind of like um proud to be promiscuous. Like she's
Yeah.
like doesn't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
Wasn't a problem. Like just go for it. Like live your life, have your fun. So I love that that character existed. And then this grumpy character, this grumpy ego character starts dating her, but has a problem that she used to date someone else that
Mm-hmm.
he was a rival of. And so there's a moment where he goes to Ted Lasso and the other assistant coaches and is like, um, what am I supposed to do when she's been dating this other guy? Like, it's kind of like how guys see girls as being promiscuous, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be with someone who has been with other people. And so he's like trying to decide if he is going to do a good thing and continues to see her, or if he's going to do a bad thing and kind of treat her like
Mm-hmm.
do some slut shaming maybe, or do something awful in that regard. And he goes to the other coaches and is he's asking like, what should I do in this situation? And they're just like, get over it.
Yeah.
That's the answer. Like, get over yourself. Like, who cares if she's been with other people? Do you enjoy being with her now? Does she enjoy being with you?
Mm-hmm.
Get over it. It's
Yeah.
history. And I that's the kind of positivity that I like, that it's just like matter of fact.
Yeah.
For some people it's matter of fact, like you can just like get over it, but then it also shows the people who are questioning, and the fact that, you know, he's having a problem, but then he realizes he has to just get over it, and he does, and he gets over it.
Yeah.
And
And so
I like that it shows all of that.
the issue was is that in the middle, as they're not dating officially, but they're like talking and hanging out, she ends up sleeping with the other guy, and so for that triggered that big thing for him. And but
Yeah,
the coaches make a good point of like, were you guys together at that time? Were you like, it's basically she doesn't owe you anything. You don't have a
right.
right to control what she does. So if unless you guys were officially like boyfriend girlfriend or whatever, then she doesn't owe you anything, and you can't be upset about it. So get over it. And it was
Get
kind of
over
cool
it.
to basically give her own agency and say that she doesn't belong to you in any way. And you guys
Yeah.
haven't come up to an agreement that you're exclusive with each other. So deal with it and move on.
And it's cool that she's a character who does have agency. She definitely makes her own
Mm-hmm.
decisions and does what she wants, which is great. And it's also cool that we see this conversation in her locker room, because we know what locker room talk means to
Mm-hmm.
some people. But we see this conversation between like four guys in a locker room about this woman, and the guys are like not trying to pull her agency. They're trying to let
Mm-hmm.
her um, be. This is why I say like this is the positivity that we could have in the world if guys would just um, stand up for women even when women aren't there, when they're not trying to be performative about it.
Hmm.
Just be a good person and stand up for people when people need standing up for. um and this show has a lot of that, a lot of standing up for people. A
Hmm.
lot of this show also has a lot of pulling people up. um like we have the, I don't even know what role he's in at the beginning of the show, but he ends up becoming an assistant coach by the
Nathan.
end of the show. Because what is he at the
He
beginning of the
was
show?
he's like
Like a
like
gopher,
he's like equipment manager.
like a
He's
water boy.
he's the guy who said he's just the assistant like equipment person. Um
And he's someone that gets overlooked a lot, but is very smart and has a lot of good ideas. And so Ted Lasso notices that and is like, let's pull you up. We're gonna pull you up. You're someone who gets overlooked, but I'm not overlooking you, and I'm gonna pull you up to where you should be. And there's, it's that kind of positivity that's in this show. The chat is talking about Mythic Quest, which is, it actually was, Gooch Camper from the chat that's in the
mhm.
chat sometimes. He's the one that recommended Ted Lasso to me, and he's been recommending Mythic Quest to me as well. So I guess maybe that's the next one that
Yeah, I was
that
just
we
thinking
should
the same
watch,
thing. Mythic Quest might be the next one that I watch, especially
because
if
the
I can.
chat seems to be all about it as well.
Yeah. So I'm really excited for season 2 of Ted Lasso. I'm glad that I didn't see it till now because I only have to wait like a month or like a month and a half for a season 2 because it ended and I was very much wanted to see more. But morning show, we've been waiting. It's been a while now because of COVID. I think they were about to start filming season 2 when COVID started, so they obviously
Yeah,
got postponed. So because the show originally came out in at the end of
2019.
2019, so we still
Yeah,
have not seen a season 2, and it ended in a it was the season didn't end
yeah,
with the nice thing. It literally was like we're gonna take a break here, but the story's still happening. It was almost not quite a
yeah,
cliffhanger, but basically a cliffhanger of what's happening in the story. We didn't get any kind of closure to any of the stories, so I'm
yeah.
excited to see what's coming up on that.
And I don't know that both shows are done in a way that I have no idea how they're what they're even going to tackle in the second season. Like,
Mm-mm.
where are these stories going to go? I'm interested. I'm looking forward to both of them, but I am going to be surprised no matter what. And I think that's a good thing. Um, that means that both of these shows aren't really stale. So
Oh, not at all.
I have no idea. I have no idea what they're going to do in a second season of Morning Show. Like, what is that workplace? What is that work environment going to be like now?
Uh, did you have any favorite characters? Like just fun, like
from
favorite characters of either of the
from
show?
either.
Yeah.
Um, I really liked, you talked about the couple on the morning show that had the
Mm-hmm.
consensual relationship, and
Yes.
I really liked them. Especially the woman in that couple, because she was a new hire.
Mm-hmm.
This was kind of a new work environment for her, and yet she was still not afraid to speak out about stuff,
Mm-hmm.
um, which I think we need more of. We need to have more work environments that facilitate that kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
and I think her character is kind of leading that charge on that show. Um, who else did I really like? I don't know. There's the both shows are such ensemble casts.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of hard to pick out one person. Obviously, I love Reese Witherspoon. I always
Yeah.
love Witherspoon. And I love the fact that she was just like ready to kick everyone in the ass on that show.
Mm-hmm.
That's my kind of character. Um, I mean, literally from the get go. Like the first time we see her character, she's yelling at someone,
Mm-hmm.
and rightfully so. So
I
yeah, I
think
guess those are my favorite on there.
I think Billy Crudup was definitely my favorite character in that show because he's so chaotic and his character's
Yeah,
so intelligent. And so he's able to just talk circles around people. He's so funny. He's super sarcastic, and chaotic is, I think, my favorite thing. He's so chaotic. He really doesn't really care one way or the other. He just wants to witness things happen.
Yeah.
And it's weird when you do find out that he has a line. He is chaotic and he can be kind of an asshole, but he does definitely have some kind of moral line that is very blurry.
Yeah.
You are, as a person witnessing him, it's hard to see where that moral line it is for him, but he has one. It's very interesting to see. And Ted Lasso, I just, for obvious reasons, Danny Rojas was a very fun character for me. Danny Rojas is the Mexican soccer player that they get, who is just a giant ball of energy. When you first he gets introduced, he's hilarious. Running around, he is great. I had so much fun. But yeah, you're right. I think both of these shows are very much ensemble. I think, and they definitely
everyone plays so well off of each other.
It's not.
I do like.
It would be very easy for Ted Lasso to just be Jason Sudeikis' show, and it could just be him.
But it focuses on so many.
But you couldn't have Ted Lasso without his interactions with other people, and I think they're handling that ensemble pretty well.
Yeah, I do like that you brought up Billy Crudup being chaotic, because he is very chaotic. He's causing a lot of mischief, but I feel like his character is so chaotic good, because there's definitely a difference between like chaotic bad, chaotic neutral, chaotic good. And his character is so chaotic good because the way that he wants to shake things up is how things need to be shaken up. Like he's the one who wants two women anchors, like, as opposed to the traditional man-woman couple. And he's the one who wants Reese Witherspoon to sit up there and speak her mind, as opposed to being the scripted character of an anchor. So the way, like, he's causing chaos, but he's causing chaos to a system that no longer works, which is a lot like our world, what's happening in the world right now. We're still holding on to a lot of things that no longer work, and things need to be shaken up in order for us to progress forward. So I love that his chaos actively works to do that.
Yeah, he actively wants to destroy so he could rebuild better, or different, at the very least differently.
Yeah. Yeah, he serves a very specific purpose on that show, which I love.
I do too. So make sure you guys check both of these shows out. I think you guys are gonna have a good time. I would definitely watch Morning Show first, and then Ted Lasso, because Morning Show is gonna make you feel kind of crappy, and then watch Ted Lasso, which will make you feel really good about yourself. Not yourself, just
it might be. I binged both separately, but if you are going into it thinking that you want to watch both, it might be good to just literally watch an episode of Morning Show followed by an episode of Ted Lasso. That might be like a good hour-and-a-half block of some good content. I could see that working very well.
That would be good. Yeah.
Kenny's asking.
Yeah.
Kenny's asking in the chat if these are worth the Apple Plus subscription, but you were saying earlier that do the free trial. You could probably watch both of these during a free trial, maybe. But I feel like there's something I just learned. I didn't realize that there's the Apple bundle now, where you can.
That's what I have.
Apple Plus.
It's great.
Okay, so I need to upgrade, because right now I have Apple Music, and the Apple bundle is only like $5 more, and that would make, because we have Apple Plus right now for free because Dave got a new iPhone, and that's going to run out soon. So I think if I just for like $5 more just can get Apple Music, Apple Plus, and Apple Arcade, like that's,
and Apple like News and Apple Fitness. You get everything.
Oh, Apple Fitness is a part of it too. Yeah, I feel like the Apple bundle.
It's really good. Yeah, if you're in the Apple ecosystem, it is a worthwhile bundle, and I think it also gives you 2 terabytes of online storage as well. So I was already
definitely use that as an artist.
I was already paying what the bundle costs with all the things that I got, and so when I switched to the bundle, I turned into basically the same thing I was paying, but I got a bunch of other extra stuff. So was it worth the I think so. I think these shows are worth the Apple Plus subscription, even if it's for a month, to get
Yeah.
through some of the shows. There's a couple of the shows that are interesting there. C, I didn't finish. These are shows I haven't quite finished. C is one of them, which is pretty interesting. It was Jason Momoa. It's like a post-apocalyptic thing where everybody's blind. And
I've heard about it.
and then there's For All Mankind, which is a really it's basically the space race that landing on the moon, but from the perspective of what would happen if the Russians had landed on the moon before America did. So it's just, it's kind of this, flipping that on upside down to see how America would react and what would happen. Those shows that I started watching that I found interesting. Oh, also, The Long Way is on there. There's The Long Way Up, The Long Way Across, and The Long Way Down. I started on season 3 for some reason, and I need to go watch season 1 and 2, but it doesn't matter because it's Ewan McGregor and his best friend doing motorcycle trips across different places.
I've heard about that. Yeah.
So I started watching The Long Way Up, which is them going from South America all the way to, I think they're going to Santa Monica, from like literally the tip of Chile at the bottom and driving up all the way through South America and to Mexico and to the U.S. And then the other 2 shows, I think one of them is in Europe, one's in Africa or something like that. So they're actually pretty cool shows. We see them travel, do this big trips and the experiences they have. And this 3rd season was really cool because they got prototype electric motorcycles from Harley Davidson. So they got completely prototype motorcycles that are not in production, and they had basically took them on this trip to test them. And so you get to see not only the trip, but see how these motorcycles and how they handle the whole being electric motorcycles throughout, which is pretty cool.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I guess if we're recommending Apple stuff, I also have to recommend Wolf Walkers, which is exclusive on there. The animated movie that should have won all the awards last year, but didn't. That is definitely worth watching if you're going to end up watching some Apple Plus stuff too. So yeah, I feel like Apple Plus actually has a lot to offer, and I really went into Apple Plus thinking, I don't really care about any of this. But it turns out that they have some good content.
Yeah.
And now we got Mythic Quest to watch too.
And again, just because we're here in the Apple recommendation thing, if you are in the Apple ecosystem, you have an Apple TV or anything like that, one of the things that I really like to do is go in every couple of weeks or so and go into where they sell movies. And they often have the like under $4.99 movies, and so I just scroll through there, and there's a bunch of movies that I like or want, and I get to just buy them for under $5. And there's a lot of movies that you often are not streaming anywhere, and things like that. And so I've been collecting my favorite movies. I have like Jurassic Park, Goonies, and a bunch of the stuff that I know that I like to watch whenever I want. And then I just slowly collecting movies that I could just watch whenever. Just kind of cool. All for under $5.
I took your recommendation from last week, and because it was still available, it's not now, but I rented Love and Monsters for 99 cents.
Yeah.
I haven't watched it yet because, as we learned, you can wait 30 days to start it. So I haven't watched it yet, but I ended up renting that, and I rented another movie that Dave and I have been wanting to see for a while. The Big Blue was also available for 99 cents. And then there's a documentary. I don't know if it's still available, but I feel like a lot of our viewers might like to know if it's still there. There's a documentary about Ray Harryhausen on there that's only 99 cents for rent as well. Really cool. So
I didn't know that.
I ended up renting like 3 movies after we signed off last week. And I really need to check more often to see like what's available for rent in their 99 cent section, because they're a few gems that pop up in there every now and then.
Like I bought Jurassic Park for $5 like a week ago. Now it's $7.99. Anyways, but yeah, thank you so much for joining us, everybody. We'll be back next week. What are we doing next week? Well,
next week we are. I guess I should look it up real quick. Did you have any recommendations?
Those were my recommendations.
Oh, well then I'm also recommending all that stuff too, because I don't have anything.
It's a joint. On Phil Good says, I agree with going for balance. After for 4 episodes of the first season of Handmaid's Tale, I need a whole season of Schitt's Creek to balance. Oof.
Yes, absolutely. Schitt's Creek is so good. We need to do a Schitt's Creek episode.
Yes.
Next week, on our schedule we have great trailers. Are we going to do that next week? Because we have to get those trailers together. But I
Yeah,
feel like you can do that.
we can do that. We can do that.
So next week we're talking about trailer, the art of trailer making, like what makes a good trailer, and we're gonna have some of our favorite trailers to show.
Yeah. Cool. So make sure you just come back for that. There's nothing for you to prepare. You don't need to watch anything because we're gonna bring it all.
They're just trailers, and we shouldn't have any spoilers next week either.
No. So come join us. So if you guys hang out, we'll be back with Perception Paints in just a few minutes. So hang out for that. Come back in 5 minutes while we set up. And then that if there's anything else you have, Will, is that it?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for watching, everybody, and we'll
Cinephilia
Cinephilia later.